Some cases you work, they just become files in a cabinet. Others, they stay with you. They become a part of the man you are today. The story I'm about to tell you is one of those. It's based on a series of horrifying events that I investigated back in the mid-90s. For the privacy of the victims and their families, I've changed the names and locations, but this story is real. And if you stick with me to the end, I'll tell you the real names of the monsters behind it and the fate they ultimately met. Because some stories are too important to be forgotten. It was January, one of those nights where the cold gets into your bones. The call came in just after 11 p.m. A home invasion on Willow Lane in the quiet suburb of Oak Creek. The dispatcher said there were victims. That was an understatement. What we walked into that night, I'd been a cop for 15 years, thought I'd seen it all. I was wrong. The scene was pure carnage. In the living room, two elderly women tied to their chairs. In the hallway, the homeowner, an older man, lying in a pool of his own blood. A fourth victim was in the den. It was an execution, a robbery gone horribly, horribly wrong. We'd never seen anything like it in Oak Creek. It felt unreal, demonic. But there was a survivor, a miracle, a woman named Laura Peterson. She had been shot in the head, left for dead, but somehow she crawled across the street for help. Before she lost consciousness, she managed to give us two things. The first was that there were three of them. The second was a name or a nickname they called their leader, Stan. We had a name, but it wasn't much. Stan could be anyone, but the crime scene started talking to us. We found 5 small caliber shell casings, but no weapon. The place was littered with empty liquor bottles. These guys were drunk, sloppy. That gave us hope. Then a break. One of my uniforms found it on the road leading to the commuter train station. A homemade pistol, disguised to look like a pen. A ghost gun. Ballistics confirmed it was our murder weapon. They must have dropped it in their haste. Their footprints showed they crossed the tracks but didn't board a train. They were on foot. We immediately put out a bolo to all surrounding counties. Be on the lookout for a man named Stan, short in stature, likely intoxicated. The next morning, we got a call. A beat cop from Riverside, a small town 10 miles away, said a guy matching the description, a guy named Stan Collins, had been seen around, staying with his sister. It was the break we needed. We didn't want to spook him. I sent a forensics guy in undercover to lift a print from his sister's doorknob. It was a long shot, but it paid off. The print was a perfect match to one we found on a bottle in the victim's house. We had him. The rest was just a matter of time. That evening, our stakeout team radioed in. 2 men approaching, carrying heavy bags. One was significantly shorter than the other. Stan. We moved in. The takedown was clean. We arrested 32-year-old Stan Shorty Collins and his 23-year-old accomplice, Victor Jenkins. Inside the apartment waiting for them was their getaway driver, a 20-year-old named Jessica Clark. We had them, but we had no idea who we really had. This wasn't just one home invasion. This was the bloody end of a 3-month spree that had all started with a chance encounter on a commuter train. It began 3 months earlier, in October. A man of small stature boarded the 6:15 train out of the city. He stood out, not just because of his height, but because of his bright red gloves. At the next stop, 2 young women got on. Stan, fueled by alcohol, turned on the charm. He offered them a drink, played music for them, a generous, debonair gentleman. What they couldn't know was that their new friend had committed a monstrous crime less than an hour before, that the red gloves on the seat between them were hiding the blood of 3 people he had just brutally murdered. They couldn't possibly imagine they were now accessories to the birth of a gang that would leave a trail of bodies across 3 counties, and that this very train would become the artery for his evil, carrying him to and from his hunting grounds. Stan Collins was a man at war with the world, all because of his height. He was smart, he was ruthless, and he refused to be an outsider. He found his power in burglary. His small frame was an asset, allowing him to get into places others couldn't. But he kept getting caught. The problem wasn't the crime, it was the witnesses. Prison wasn't rehabilitation for Stan, it was his university. He listened to the lifers, the career killers, and they taught him the one cardinal rule that he'd been breaking: leave no witnesses. They told him that the instinct to kill is in all of us, like a predator. Most people just keep it locked away. Stan decided it was time to unlock his. Stan went home with one of the women from the train and simply stayed. When her husband, Vic Jenkins, an ex-Marine, came home, everyone expected a bloodbath. But Stan didn't flinch. He faced down a man twice his size and broke him. Stan saw the weakness in Vic and exploited it. He didn't just take his wife, he took his soul. He offered Vic a place at his side. Money, liquor, power, all he had to do was obey. Vic, a man who had served his country, became the obedient soldier to a psychopath. Soon, a young woman named Jessica Clark joined their crew. She was drawn to the danger, the money. The gang was complete. And Stan finally had what he'd always craved: absolute power over others. What followed was a campaign of terror. They turned home invasion into a twisted game of Russian roulette. From the window of the commuter train, Stan would pick a house at random. If you weren't home, you were lucky. If you were, there was no mercy. Their most heinous crime happened in Northwood. They broke into the home of an elderly couple. After tying them up, they discovered their 11-year-old grandson hiding upstairs. Vic hesitated, but Stan was adamant. "Kids have good memories," he said, and forced Vic to kill the boy. It was a baptism in blood, ensuring Vic was bound to him forever. That night, Stan also attacked the boy's grandparents with an axe. Incredibly, the grandmother survived, but the attack left her paralyzed and unable to speak, another living victim silenced by his brutality. By January, they had a new recruit, Leo Martinez. The night of the Oak Creek massacre, Stan decided it was time for Leo's initiation. After they had tied up the entire family, Stan handed Leo the pen gun and ordered him to execute one of them. But something happened that Stan never expected. The kid refused. Leo fought back, knocked the gun from Stan's hand, and fled into the darkness. It was the first time anyone had defied him. Enraged, Stan lost control. In his fury, he executed the family himself. But his perfect system had a crack in it. The escape of Leo, the struggle. It made him sloppy. It's why he dropped the murder weapon. It's why he didn't make sure Laura Peterson was dead. Stan's obsession with total control was, in the end, his own undoing. Stan Collins never faced a jury. 2 months after his arrest, he was found dead in his cell. He had taken his own life. He judged himself before a court could. The others faced the consequences. Vic Jenkins was sentenced to death. Jessica and Leo, for their parts, received lengthy prison sentences. And that was the end of the commuter train crew. And now, as I promised, the truth. The man I called Stan Collins was actually Stanislav Smayan. This didn't happen in a quiet American suburb, but in the chaotic landscape of post-Soviet Russia in the early 1990s, a time of economic collapse and rampant crime, when human life felt cheap. His main accomplice was Viktor Koryakin, and the woman was Elena Laracheva. Their reign of terror was brutally real, playing out in the towns and villages surrounding Moscow. They were just as vicious, their methods just as random. In the end, Smayan did commit suicide in his cell before his trial. Koryakin was sentenced to death by firing squad, and the others received prison sentences. The story is a world away, but the evil is universal. It proves that a monster can be born anywhere, forged by insecurity and a lust for power. And sometimes it can all begin with a simple smile on a train